All right, we are recording. Let me share my screen and do the intro, give folks some time to join in, as well as some explanation as to what these meetings are all about for folks, checking it out on video later. Maybe this is going to be the very first time somebody's going to be watching this video. So it's good to go over what we are here all about. So first of all, of course, privacy. We are recording these videos, and since there is a likelihood, and we actually encourage people to be sharing their thoughts and feelings and experiences and things along those sorts, along those lines, please make sure that you don't share anything that's is going to cause you any kind of trouble. What is the virtual brown bag thing? This is a place where we get together. We share all sorts of tips and tricks. May it be tools that you use to be more productive, shortcuts that you feel you cannot live without, maybe an article or a book that you've read recently and you felt it was valuable to you, so you may want to share with others. Experiences, things that you've learned the hard way, and hopefully you're going to make somebody else's life easier by sharing your experiences with them. Frustrations or difficulties. Maybe you are going through something that you're having a hard time implementing. Maybe it's some code that can be refactored, you just don't know how. Bring it up, and somebody else can help you out with that. This is not supposed to be a one-way conversation. Somebody will usually say something or start sharing something. Feel free to jump in at any point in time, and pretty much have a conversation. That's the idea behind these meetings. Logistics, we do this every Thursday from 12 to 1 Central Time here on Skype. Anybody and everybody willing to either share or learn or doing both are more than welcome to join us. This is a comprehensive list of everything we've covered this far, or actually lots of topics we've covered this far. At the bottom, the historical ones, so things that we've shared over the years, like the 11 years since we started this, and we had some breaks in between. And at the top, the most recent ones we've been sharing. So in recent history, user stories, how to refine them, how to use them, how to word them, emacs, TypeScript, Pomodoro technique, tests, unit tests, integration tests. I mean, we've been all over the map, and that's what we're going to continue doing. It's for the good of mankind. That's why we do this. We have a virtualbrownbag.com website where you can always find the link to this meeting, as well as the link to the videos from the previous meetings. So go check it out if you need to catch up later. And other than that, let's roll. By all means, at any point in time, if you feel like you have something to share, just speak up. If you don't want to interrupt whoever is talking, just drop a note on the chat window, and then we can find the good timing for you to jump in and start sharing. So without further ado, anybody would like to kick us off? George, it seems like you were talking, but you're on mute, man.
Oh, I said, yeah, please, because I've not had a lot of time to do much of anything.
Oh,
this week.
Oh yeah, come on, you've been doing something.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously I could.
Right?
Still me.
You're being alive. I can see you there.
I could.
Org mode?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. I could do some cool stuff with org mode. But no, well, first of all, let's give other people a chance. What has everyone else been working on, playing with? Because yeah, like I said, I can totally go on.
Right.
I mean, people have been watching Build, I guess. Well, what's been exciting there?
True.
I don't know. You haven't been watching Build either.
I have not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've honestly dropped watching like this kind of conference for a while now. Like I've noticed that myself, I'm not as interested about what's like coming up, in the next 1 or 2 years or whatever. I used to be like that, not anymore. Now I let the younger kids, jump on that and let me know what's hot, while I focus on, I don't know, just other kinds of skills. That's how I've changed over time. Not that those things are not important. It's just that for me, for my personal goals, they don't
Mhm.
line up. So I'd rather just catch up with that later. But what about the other folks on the call? Anybody looking at those and anything that's really exciting that people should be paying attention to?
I will say I'm still getting feedback from someone. All right. I will say that like I did tune in for a little while, and it was so wild. Like how I mean, I appreciate that they're trying to adjust to the format, and they're not just doing the same thing because it wouldn't really work. But it is really
Right.
weird. There's just so much of everybody showing their dogs. like, like that was probably like a third of it. It's just people showing
Right.
off their dogs or teasing showing off their dogs.
Oh man.
Yeah. Not everything worked.
Hmm.
It did seem like they like let Hanselman just kind of do whatever, which is pretty nice too. But
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah, he's a great
it's not all gonna be hits, especially
right.
with the format. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean,
everyone.
yeah. As far as new stuff, I mean, well, I think last time we talked about the script mode.
Right.
I'm pretty happy about that. I haven't actually done anything with it yet.
Okay.
I mean, I can't do anything because I don't think you can get .NET 9 yet.
I do not know.
Yeah, I googled it really quickly and didn't find anything.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
does anyone else have anything they want to talk about? Because if not, I will show org mode stuff. But
Right.
all right,
All
I'll
right.
show
Go
org
for
mode
it.
stuff.
All right.
Fine. Um, there. Move you off of the screen.
All
So this is actually for I have a repo that I'll pull it up. So this is some guys at one of the Slacks I'm in started this, where every single day there's just a channel they post like a interviewee type problem, logic problem. It's pretty fun. So sometimes I'll go in, I grab them, I do them. I again because I'm doing it in org mode, I practice doing it in literal coding style. So like,
right.
so you come in here, here's the problem, and then actually like me working through the idea and then the implementation and stitching everything together and all that stuff. And then I actually started running one because I'm a CTO at a code camp for the alumni of the code camp as well. So you know there's you know sometimes I would just grab the problems from somewhere online. Me, I just usually come up with them, which is so I try not to come out and do too many of them. So I'm finishing up working through one from the other day that I posted from the other day right now, and I'll like to I could take people through it and kind of show this last part of how I'm putting it together as well. So let me pull up the problem. I have it right here. Oh, goodness. Go away, image. There we go. So the problem is basically this. We want to write a. Here, let me make it larger. So we're gonna write a function that is going to be given a DOM element, and it's going to make its background color start fading into different colors along the visible light spectrum, just kind of in an endless cycle. So let me put this up I'm going to export this document into HTML, and basically this is our visible light spectrum. So we want it to fade red into orange, into yellow, into light green, into cayenne, into blue, into purple, and then back into red, orange, and so on, just kind of over however many milliseconds you're provided. So that's challenge one. And challenge two, we want a generator function. It's going to take a step size and then produces an endless sequence of RGB color strings, just kind of along that same cycle, but each one takes that many steps. So that's the idea. so I wanted to kind of put this together in org mode. It's also kind of interesting because one of the things I want to develop and get better at and how to figure out is I want to be able to embed running HTML code into my documents, running HTML, JavaScript, CSS, which just to date I haven't played around with much. It's not really how org mode is exactly supposed to work, because for the idea behind org is like it's similar to Markdown, like you could just read the document and still make sense. It kind of breaks down the point you're talking about HTML. Also, you're supposed to export it to all sorts of formats, which again you can't really do if you're embedding HTML in there. But that being said, especially when you're talking about stuff that is HTML and stuff that's dynamic, it's kind of your only option, and it's flexible enough to allow that. So, basically, for there's one key thing to this solution to understand, and I kind of took it to our alumni and dropped it as a hint. I haven't seen anyone actually pick up on it yet, but RGB is not the only way of representing color. If you do not know, there's actually a bunch of different ways of representing color. For example, if you've ever heard CMYK, well, just the same way as all colors can be represented as a combination of red, green, blue, and intensity, they could also all be represented as a combination of cyan, magenta, yellow, and intensity. K is how much black you add in. And CMYK is actually, for reasons I actually don't know, it's what like printers use a lot of times. It corresponds better to the model for printers. Yeah. Can anyone actually explain why that's better for printers? I don't know. Okay. It is. There's certain printers that don't even take files in RGB format. I actually don't know why it is, but my point is that there's various representations, right? In this case, you still have 4 numbers basically for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. How much you're mixing? Well, there's other formats as well. And one of the ones that fits well with this particular problem is the HSL or HSV format. And in this format, you imagine the color space looking like this. Come here.
I think with the CMYK thing, it's because the additive properties for mixing paint or mixing ink versus mixing light are different. They're like
that might be yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, maybe something like that. So with HSL, HSV format, you imagine the color space like this. And I mean, you've probably seen something that looks kind of like this if you click around color pickers. Sometimes they have stuff which presents it in a circle, and you're like, that's kind of weird. Sometimes it's square, sometimes it's a circle. That's what they're going for. So you kind of have this cone where how far up the cylinder you are represents how much black is added in. So the further down, once you're down here, there's like no light at all. Once you're up here, there's lots of light around. Then you have saturation, which is like within the tone that you're in. How bright is it? So if low saturation, it's so bright it's basically white. High saturation, it's kind of that true color tone, true cyan, true blue. And hue, if you notice, is a turn around the visible light spectrum, right? As you go around. So with that we can kind of start working on this. So right off the bat, I was like, okay, if you know that, you could actually solve this with CSS alone. Let me pull this up. If I scroll down, so there you go. There you have a div, and it's just kind of melding into there, and I haven't quite figured out how to embed the HTML yet, so I'll just flip back to the document and show you. So pretty much here we go. You have an article, and you can write stuff in there. By the way, it's kind of annoying to type that in here, so I can pop it into a web mode like this. So this is a really nice feature that C# has, where it's like, okay, you don't have, I'm sorry, that Emacs has, where you, for blocks like this, it's part of org mode, you can create you can pop open a new buffer, which just has the content of this guy right here, and can set the appropriate mode on it. And then when I save stuff in here, it automatically saves into that buffer and so on. Again, if you're not familiar with animation keyframes, basically I'm saying I'm going to create an animation. I'm going to base it on this keyframe structure I'm going to define in CSS. I'm going to call it gradient. It can be any word. It's just to be the same word here and here. It's going to last about 5 seconds. It's going to run on an infinite loop, and all the transitions in and out are going to be linear. I'll show you what it looks like if you do other stuff. So let me refresh this page. You can see it's kind of like goes into the color quickly and then hangs there and then goes into the other corner color quickly. So it's basically what curve it follows in transitioning between these states. If you check those, if you check that, you scroll down to the bottom. There we go. You could even get like a nice little graph about what that looks like, right? So it's going to go fast and slow. And you say, well, I don't want that. What I actually want is to be linear, like this. So it's a constant speed throughout. That's what the linear part does, right? Okay, and that little menu right there, I guess I should pop it open so people can see it, is the sum of it's not actually even all of the options to export. So I could, if the calendar option, I think is more if you're like using the agenda features, which I don't use that much, but I'm using the export to HTML features, export to LaTeX, export to ODT, which is like the open office format, export to plain text, which is going to try to, as well as it can, like draw stuff out in ASCII. And publish is like a big feature where I can publish an entire directory of org documents. It's basically a static site generator, which one of these days I will move my my actual I'll move my site to that. So anyway, so doing it with CSS is pretty simple. So challenge one, I mean, I could write a JavaScript function that creates a style sheet and adds that into there. That's not that interesting. The next part is a little more interesting. Like, okay, well, what if we're gonna spit these out into functions, from a generator? Well, I mean, really, it's actually not that hard, because just like I did here, CSS has an HSL function. Like this right here is a totally valid color. So that first number is the number of hue between 0 and 360. Remember, it's degrees around the circle. The second one is saturation. You want 100% because you want all the way to the edge of the true color. And L. So I think there's a slight difference between HSL and HSV, and it's just in how this third value is represented. But 50% is basically like median amount of light. I think if I turn it up to 100%, everything comes out as white for some reason that I don't fully understand. Anyway, so returning like this, okay, that's not that hard. Here's my step size, right? If I'm going to give it as a proportion between 0 and 1, then really I'm just going to multiply through by 360 and floor that. So in this case, I wrote a function. I'm just going to track how far around the circle we are as a proportion between 0 and 1, right? So each one I can calculate the hue just by multiplying by 360 and flooring it. There you go. I yield that back. And then and then for the next one, we are just adding in that step size, and then making sure that this right here just makes sure that it never exceeds 1, right? So if it ever exceeds 1, it drops back to between 0 and 1. And then we're just kind of looping that over and over again. So here we go, JavaScript. Again, this is kind of interesting stuff if people aren't familiar and working with JavaScript generators. By invoking that function, you get back an iterable. An iterable is not actually evaluated yet. It's lazy. And I mean, if I put in a for of, it would start evaluating, but this is an endless loop, so it would just lock everything up. Instead, I can grab its symbol iterator property, which is a function which I can invoke, and that gives me an iterator. Now, for the iterator, I can actually call next on it manually, get the next value, and that's really what I'm doing here. So this right here creates an array of length 10 and every single value is just set to the next value from the array. So I get this right here. This is actually a neat trick I picked up from a student of mine, and I hadn't seen it before, and I didn't understand why it works. Array.from, and you pass it an object with a length property, and it'll generate an array of that size. If you look at the spec for array.from, you can pass it any sort of array-like object, or really anything.
And you know the second argument for that one is like a map. So
yeah.
That's
that's what I'm doing. Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, although you could also just .map, but I do think that this is a little nicer. But then the reason that works, it's not like length is a special case. It's, remember, in JavaScript, if something has a length property, it's considered array-like. So when you're telling it to interpret something that has a length property as an array, it just understands that as that many slots in an array, which is, I don't feel great about it, but it does work. It's kind of fun. All right, so you can generate this, and this is actually perfectly fine. These are valid colors to put into HTML, into anywhere, but that's not very fun. Right, so the next thing I wanted to do is like, okay, like the prompt actually says RGB, even though I'm the one that wrote the prompt. So let's actually do an RGB format. Well, so I pulled up here. I was like, oh god, it's a whole formula, but fine. Here you go. So it's this formula. We're gonna convert it to RGB. Okay, I can write that in JavaScript. It's mostly looks the same. And then I want to test it. And I mean, I can go ahead and run some through it manually. Okay, watch it spit out the results. All right, so I'm going to run this right now. Ooh. Okay, this is console.log. Oh, wow. Okay. I lost a bunch of work here because my emacs crashed, actually. That's all right. We can fix that really quickly. So here's what happens. Notice what the first, this is actually supposed to be red. So FF and then 0 and then 0. Looks like we need to LeftPad. Right? Because it shouldn't be 0, it should be 0, 0. At this point, we should all know how to code a LeftPad function, but let's just do it anyway. So const LeftPad equals, we're going to take a string, the length we want, and the filler. And now we're gonna do array.from length, the desired length minus str.length. So that's going to give us that. Then we're going to do filler. So that's going to give us an array of that many fillers. Join with an empty string, and then just add that into the string itself. It's a one-liner. Nobody needs to pull it off from NPM. Then we can do, we'll just do this also. 2 hex equals num. So we'll do LeftPad num.toString 16. Something like that should work. And I actually have my formula wrong here, which I'll get to in a second. It'll become more visible in a second. So I'm gonna actually. Oh, this is a fun thing to do. I'm gonna record a macro because I have to do this 3 times. So I'm gonna hit QA. Q is just start recording a macro. A is just any some place to put the macro. I'm gonna put type 2 hex right here. Delete that. Move over and jump to the last right there. And I'm gonna hit Q to finish defining the macro. Now I can hit @A, and it's gonna run it again. And I can hit it at this time, run it again. So pretty nifty. I run this. What happened? Let's see. LeftPad. Yep, I didn't actually use LeftPad correctly. 2, 0. There we go. So here's what. Now I want to test this code block. I have this table right here that tells me what the different values should be. Can I just churn through this against this table? Well, this is the part that I was on. Let's actually paste that table into here. Ooh, it doesn't look like a table. So we gotta convert it into one. I could write a regex to do it, but let's do it with macros. So again, I'm gonna hit create a macro, QA. I'm gonna jump to the first word, hit a pipe, jump to the end of the word, hit a pipe. I'm gonna unwrap these parens. I'm gonna jump to the column, undo the last one, jump to the end of this, add a pipe, jump to the end of that, add a pipe. I don't actually need that top. That top one to come down, go to the beginning of the line, hit Q again to define the macro. Now I'm going to hit @A, and I'm going to just do that over and over.
That's kind of cool.
Yep. Macros do exist in most editors. They're kind of a pain in the ass in some of them. I remember JEdit was the one I first used them in. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But let's see. Let's do some. I don't want 100%. I want it just to be a decimal. So we'll just do the easy way because there's only a couple of them. So we'll change 100% to 1. We're gonna change all of 0% to 0. Oh wait, that don't do that first. I need to do 50% first. 50% to 0.5. So we'll do 25% to 0.25. There's only 1.75%, so I can do that one manually. And we'll do a 0% as 0. Okay. Oh, I need to do it for all of them. So, cool. Let's align that. All right, and it'd be nice to have some headers on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and open my table manager, insert H line. Actually, move that up here, and right there we're gonna do color. We're gonna do HSL and RGB hex. Cool. So we need a way to reference this. And the way we do that is we give it a name. It's just color, HSL, RGB. And now we can go ahead and reference this. So we're gonna go ahead and create a new block. All right, we're gonna make another JavaScript one. We're gonna add a var in going to be called colors equals color HSL RGB. Is that what I called it? Yeah. Okay, so now within this block, there's going to be this variable available named colors. And we're going to want to be able to reference this block as well. Now, there's a bunch of different ways of doing this. I could like start up like a node session behind the scenes, but this is actually the one I prefer most of the time. I'm going to create a name for this block. I'm just going to name it HSL to RGB. Come on. Don't lose the... It just lost syntax highlighting on me. It'll get it back. Okay. Now what you can do is actually inline it into this right here with something called no web. We can say no export. So it will actually take this block and just before evaluation, actually, go ahead and inline it right there. Let me format everything. Okay. So the one thing that's kind of a bit annoying is because that block is not valid JavaScript, it kind of screws it. It can screw some stuff up. I'm going to get rid of that console log. Okay. So now in here, we have that colors array. So we can just go ahead for const, and in there we're going to say it's going to be named color, then there'll be HSL hex RGB of colors, and we want to see what that is. Console.log. So okay, so if I do that, it should spit out, you see, yep, I didn't actually interpolate it. There you go. So you see, that, so the HSL for some reason didn't come across. That's interesting. I wonder if it's because of this format. Try to think. Well, let's see if this will solve it. This probably will. So if I do this and run it. Okay, so it does get that one. So let's go ahead and... what's the best way of doing this? I could do regex probably, but that would be a pain in the ass. I'll just write in, another macro. Okay. Do that. Go back to the beginning. Oop. Come on. Okay. Here we go. So now if I run this block of code, okay, cool. It's coming across. We could go ahead and in there pull that right there. We say const h comma s comma l equals HSL dot split on that comma, and then dot map parse float. Right. If we do that, and now we should be able to just call our R2 RGB function. Right? Is that what we called it? We called it HSL to RGB. So color we can actually export it like this. Like that, we're expecting that is what we That's the HSL that we got. Then we'll put in what we expected, so we can easily review it, and what we actually got, which will be HSL to RGB, H, comma, S, comma, L. Let's see what happens when we run this. All right. Well, looks like I need to do right there. Okay, run it. And then, oh yeah, look at that. These weird negatives. Well, I at least know why that is, because I had solved that before. I did the formula wrong. So this needs to be in here. And just for Sandy's sake, I'll put parens in the right place. All right. So that's right. And then I'm also getting decimals for some reason, right? Which I probably need to fix. That said, this actually is probably fine for my purposes, because I only seem to be getting decimals when the values are where the L value is decimal, and that's just not a situation I'm going to be facing right now. But I suppose we could look at that as well. This is the formula right here. So it would seem that when I send in this RGB right there, you know what, let's actually do this. Like to have it be a little easier to parse through. I do results. That's not exactly what I wanted. There's some way to do it. There's some way to get it. Oh, right. It's probably because of this. Is that it? Yeah. There's some way to get it to interpret stuff as table. I don't remember what it is. Well, it's table. Yeah. Kind of, almost, but not really. For some reason, it's off by one. Whatever. We'll figure it out later. Okay. So I think that to figure that out, we'll take this one. It's got a bunch of zeros on it. That probably means it's easier to debug. Console.log or HSL. I do wish that there were good debugging facilities here. I don't think there are, but I've also never quite looked. So there we go. And if I go here, I can always do console.log CXM. This is actually one of the reasons that I prefer to do this in Python. It just makes this sort of stuff a little bit easier. Okay, so CXM, get rid of this guy. It's CXM is 00 and 0.75. And I guess I should check where RP, R prime, green prime, B prime are, RP, GB, BB. Run it. All right. So some aspect of all that is a little bit off. All right. So if we're thinking about it, R prime, RP, GP, and BP, those should all be like decimals, I guess. Like none of this should ever come up to have a decimal, and this equation is where you're just adding and multiplying by 2.5. That's never going to give a decimal. That means that right here where I'm adding C, X, and M, I ended up with a decimal when I shouldn't have. So I got a 0.75 in there. And why did I do that? Because I had L, which was what I passed in, which is 0.75, minus C divided by 2. And C was 0, so 0.75 minus 0 is that. Seems right to me, but maybe that's not correct. So I guess the question is, should this always balance out that one? I might need to actually like go through and like sit down and figure out why exactly that isn't working. Because then if I, you know what, maybe this is expecting me to not pass in decimals on. Maybe it's expecting me to pass in something like 0 to 100. L equals, star equals 100. Nope. That's way too much. So I don't know. I would need to sit down and figure it out. Maybe S as well. But I mean, like you got to see like the logic's there. Right. I just kind of be figuring out. The thing I really wanted to show was like this idea of just taking the table, popping it in here, and using that as input to feed into here right away, which I find super duper useful. You could actually spit out tables from blocks, fit them into another block. The next block that you could pass them in doesn't even have to be in the same language because it's just like it is just strings, but because you can use tables, it's structured, which is very nice as well. So yeah, that's kind of my org mode stuff that I like to talk about.
So for people who want to learn more about it, where are the go-to?
Oh boy, so that's a bit of a tough one. You have to pick up emacs right now is kind of the unfortunate answer. Now that's not quite true. There's org mode in Visual Studio Code, but it can't run code. Actually, there's a lot of features that it doesn't have. It mostly is just doing formatting, which like in that case just use Markdown. If you can't run code and do all this other extra stuff. However, if you do pick up Emacs, you could just use the Emacs stuff. I mean, you could just use org mode. It doesn't mean you have to use it to edit all your other code, right? And that's kind of what I've been recommending to people. Because like, yeah, I mean, maybe it's not for everyone. People like Visual Studio. It's a pretty solid software. I'm not saying like you don't have to, you have to not use it, but right. Just, there's a couple things like org mode, which you get started with. Once you do have it, like the documentation is not bad. It's not sparse, but it is very much in that GNU tools style. Like, oh, I guess I'll share my screen again. Show it. So you have to be okay with some dryness where they with no formatting, and then they also occasionally drop in like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy references. Pretty much. I mean that's like what all GNU stuff is. I'm sorry.
This is so nerdy, man.
It's so nerdy. It's great. I actually so like there's decent stuff. There's even a read the docs for it, which contains org mode. Org Babel, maybe. That's another thing that's a little awkward. So org mode is Where's the okay there? Org mode is the whole thing itself. Like it has all sorts of stuff in here, like features to do project planning and features to to do publishing and features to manage your agenda, like I hinted at. But where is it? OA. Hold on. So I'll show you. So like if I do that, like it pops open my agenda view, which for some reason doesn't have anything in it right now. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, so it's from that. I can use that to like jump around and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I had set a deadline for this on Sunday, and so on. Which I actually did submit, so I should mark that as done. This talk I want to put together the org mode and Farscape. Farscape is a show from the 90s, and it was so good. So org Babel was initially an extension to org mode, which is just like the part about it around running code and using it as a literate notebook. Turned out to be such a good idea. They pulled it into org, but a lot of its documentation is still kind of on its own. So when it's not really that hard. You just have to know that little bit of history, and then like all makes sense. But yeah, you could start reading through like orgmode.org and their site. I just went and ordered their reference manual. Like it's under GNU, so it's all free. But I just ordered it. I paid money to have it printed and actually put into a book, so I could sit down and read through it. So I didn't have to be looking at this.
Yeah, this is bad.
Yeah, and I mean, like I still use this, but like actually for like picking a subject and being like, okay, I'm gonna just read about the subject to figure out what the capabilities are.
Gotcha.
I mean, it was like $6 or $7. They're not making money off of it or anything.
Right.
Oh, shoot. Apparently they have plotting. This is actually spreadsheeting capabilities I do use. Like you could do columns and formulas and stuff like that. But plotting I've never used before. Apparently you could do plots. Oh, nice. And it generates, we'll even do it in ASCII, which is kind of neat. Yeah. So lots of kind of cool stuff here. Well, yeah, it looks like this table, I guess let me just grab it and drop it in and see what happens. Grab that. Yeah, so this is just, it's a formula. So if I get rid of this, I execute that formula, it fills everything in for me, which is pretty fun. Yeah. I don't even know what that function does. HF org table ASCII draw. And here you get all the nice documentation for it. What exactly it does. You could even jump to the source code for it pretty easily right here. One of the things I will recommend, unless you know Emacs well and you want to get started, do get Spacemacs. Spacemacs is like it's a configuration layer system that comes on top of Emacs, and it just comes with a bunch of default stuff built in, like this nice little menu system where you can just click through there. You don't want to mess with that by yourself until you're confident you want to mess with that by yourself. Just take their defaults and go with them.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where you go to learn more about it. It's a tool that feels like it's from an older time, but is also super crazy powerful. Yeah. And at the very least, you do all your ops stuff in it, because unlike a shell, you can run a shell command and it's right there. You get all your output in buffer. It's just a better interface than a shell command for most things.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
Very cool. That's good stuff. Oh, thanks for sharing. That was a nice one. This is how we do it.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's 12:50. I thought
Right?
way slower than that. Yeah, NPM install LeftPad. That's what Augusta says. I mean, man, yeah, it's frustrating that LeftPad was everything. Yeah, I'll defend a lot of a lot of like the npm stuff that's like split out, but the LeftPad stuff, no. They should have written it. They should have just handwritten it. It's not hard.
This is a true story. The LeftPad debacle happened the very first day. Like I was starting a job that day.
Yeah.
And it was the very first day I'd ever done anything with Node. And it was the LeftPad day, and I was like, why doesn't anything work? Like, I was getting really frustrated. And then I saw on like Hacker News, oh, LeftPad. And so I started looking, and I was like, yeah, this is the same error I'm seeing. So it's like a really bizarre coincidence. But then the following day, everything worked again. So
you got actually a very appropriate introduction to Node.
Yeah, exactly. I saw all the warts from the very first day, literally.
Just like, God, come on, man. Yeah. For people that don't know, the LeftPad debacle was basically there was a npm package. I'm sure it's still on there, probably. That was called LeftPad, which did what that single line function does, and yeah, you can see it right there. Wait, really? Oh shit! I did not know that was a thing. Well, thank you, NPM, for telling me that. Yeah. So, like, look, yeah, it's got 4 million plus weekly downloads because it's like it's a dependency of a dependency of a bunch of other dependencies, and yeah, and this guy that wrote it like just got pissed and pulled it off of npm and broke everything. No one was caching it locally.
Yeah, literally everything. Or for people that like were starting a new project, they had to pull everything from npm and couldn't get LeftPad, so nothing worked.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. This like 2 years ago. I think that was the time they did it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2015 or 2016. Now it's like 2016.
I mean, I would imagine. Yeah, it might have been around then.
Yeah.
Yep. Ooh, there's a cache. So see, I guess it's still the same thing as the other ones. It's not as simple as you think, because I don't know. Actually, this actually does seem pretty simple. I don't know. Just a lot of stuff I'll defend because, like, well, when you think about like it working in Chinese or something like that, then it's a big deal. But no, that's not what this is.
Oh man.
Yeah. What? This is ridiculous, though. So the cache is this many spaces. So if you're trying to do a space and of less than 10, then it uses just out of the cache instead of creating it. Nice.
Wow.
How many programs can possibly make a difference for? That's nuts. All right, whatever. It's archived. It's done. People are pull requesting to it, and nobody cares. All right. That's Node, everyone.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Hey, I was just defending it to Jeremy in the Slack, so
Yeah. Yeah, it's
gotten better.
It's gotten a lot better. Yeah. And now Dino's out and everyone's looking at that like greedily, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Takes off. It's got some good names behind it.
All
right.
Good stuff. All right. Anybody would like to add anything before we wrap things up? By the way, I am going through Udi's course very slowly. I'm like 15% into it, but it's definitely good stuff. I mean, I hope a good number of people are actually leveraging that, because that's great material just available.
Yeah. Do you have it? This is Uji Dahan's course on particular.net. Yeah. About architecture. Yeah. Do you know how long he's going to have it up for free?
I have no idea. That's why I've been concerned because I've been watching like maybe 20 minutes a day, whenever I have a couple of time here and there. Maybe try reaching out to him and ask, say, hey man, do I need to hurry up? Because right now I cannot make up that time.
Do it. See
Alper
if he wants to
says,
drop in on this meeting.
yeah, so Alper says you have 60 days from the day you sign up. Stop being free on May 15th. Oh man,
Darn.
hurry up.
So yeah, that's a bummer. So I did not sign up already. I just had it open in a tab. Oh well. I mean, I'm going through Jabal's book so slowly that it's gonna take like 4 months. Yeah.
Right.
All right, everyone. I'm done talking.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, Alper says I can check going on the particular website. I should see when it expires. Yeah, I definitely need to check it out because I remember I signed up. I had it open for maybe a month or something like that. And just now I started like really watching it. So yeah, need to hurry up.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Good deal. Okay, well, thanks, George. Thanks, everybody who joined us. I will stop recording now, and I look forward to seeing you all back next week.
Go.
All right. You guys take care.
Bye.